Yo guys, Snap here. Today I want to talk about this particular keystone that was revealed yesterday, which was Unending Nightmare. I want to talk about its potential in the magic finding meta. See a lot of people asking why you would ever take this node in the first place. And to people who aren't familiar with magic finding, it can be very ambiguous as to why people would even want to take this node. So in order to understand why this node might be impactful in 322 for magic finding, we need to kind of pull ourselves all the way back to Kalandra League. We saw massive nerfs to Ling mechanics in terms of ground loot. Abyss and Breach and Alva all had substantial reductions to the amount of ground loot you can get out of them while magic finding or party playing. And fast forward a year later, practically the only thing you see people MFing these days is this particular sextant with, of course, strong boxes on the map. The reason for this, most Ling mechanics now provide about a 100% increased quantity multiplier, which we can glean because on the What Happened with Items post with Chris Wilson, they explicitly said approximately twice as rewarding. They did leave something in the game, however, that just outcompetes basically everything else in the game, and that is the Enrage Compass. Any old school magic finders know that Enrage was like the old school way to juice your map before Beyond and all of these like Abyss and Breach mechanics were just overflowing the map with monsters. And so after Beyond gets deleted, Abyss and Breach get deleted as juicing ground loot mechanic, we've kind of like come full circle and now we're all the way back at Enrage Compass juicing. So all the monsters that come out of the box have 500% increased quant. Your next goal is to jam as many boxes on the map. So you put the Winged Ambush Scarab on and the Sextant, and then you want to leverage the biggest area multiplier that you can through Wandering Path, this keystone. Wandering Path is really crazy because it's essentially doubling the effectiveness of the top hat on the tree, which is effective mods. You can get up to 60% increased effective mods here. The reason effective mods is so important is because it scales these two stats at the bottom, which is quantity and rarity. Area, IIQ, and area rarity fundamentally works differently, and that is a multiplicative bonus to all of the other stats that you have on your character and or the mob. If you're playing D4, think of it as like a bucket that you can get quant and rarity. Because it's a separate category and because it's a separate multiplier, it is worth way more to get this specific stat up than it would be to get even more mob IIQ or IAQ on your character. All right, we got the mobs that have a high base quant through the compass. We jammed extra boxes on it and we are multiplying the quantity to be even higher through Wandering Path. There's one last thing people do to try and juice up the map or area quantity as much as possible, and that is of course running corrupted 8 mod maps. The reason 8 mod maps are so valuable in this juicing setup is because once again, map quantity and rarity is a completely separate multiplier that rolls against your character and the mob quantity. And so these stats are super valuable, and adding 2 additional mods to a 6 mod map can give you something like 30% quantity, which is then once again scaled by Wandering Path and all of the effective mods that you have. So ideally you're running these 8 mod maps which have the highest base quant and rarity. The main problem here is how do you obtain these maps and how do you put Delirium on it? You could technically put 5 orbs on this map and then vol it for 8 mod, but it's just not a super great idea and you're going to be burning Delirium orbs by the tens or even hundreds. Additionally, while Delirium is a very good mechanic, it is however not compatible with strong box Enrage monsters. Prohibited Library has done a ton of testing on the interactions between Enrage strongbox monsters and Delirium, and it is pretty clear that strongbox monsters do not inherit the bonus, and therefore putting Delirium on your map isn't even benefiting those Enraged strongbox mobs on your map anyways. And so in 321 Crucible, we saw a few different strategies emerge that are just basically valuing how much do we actually want to put Delirium on our map. If most of the loot is coming out of the boxes anyways, is it worth just skipping Delirium altogether and have a faster clear speed on the boxes? And that is what we like to call the boxes per hour strat, which is simply how many boxes can I churn through at the fastest speed. And the other camp was I can still churn through boxes but maybe at a slightly slower rate and put mechanics like Abyss on my map and get an Elder base and put Delirium on it. And my clear times are a little bit higher, but I'm getting more margins out of those Enraged sextants that are also expensive. One thing people were doing with Wandering Path strats is they were taking a bunch of Delirium spawn chance, specifically down here. You were getting all of the fog dissipate slower, and they were getting a bunch of natural mirror spawn chance over here as well. You can get something like a 50% spawn chance on the Delirium mirror if you fully invest into it. And so you were kind of saying like, if the Delirium spawns, that's great, I'll hit the mirror and clear as much as I can with it, but most of the loot is coming out of the boxes anyways. For that kind of style, this keystone keystone makes it so you don't have to compromise on any of that, because one, Delirium is on the map device here, and with the removal of strong boxes on the map device here, it's probably your most competitive option here unless you're going for a 5 orb strat. And so you can put it on the map device, you can take the keystone so that the fog never dissipates, you can benefit from the low investment cost and high return of Delirium, and you don't need to compromise on the base map quantity on your 8 mod enraged maps. So for a boxes per hour strat, this is super enticing for those kind of people. But the boxes per hour strat is just one camp. The other camp of people, of course, are going with an elder base map. They're perfect fossiling it to 28 quality, they're putting 5 Delirium orbs on it, they're rerolling it to +2 abyss projectiles, taking a bunch of abyss nodes here, and they're getting a little bit higher returns or higher margins in exchange for a slower map. But it's a little tough to say which strat was better. I think varying prices on the enraged section itself was kind of like your determining factor on that one, whether or not you wanted to do either slower or a faster strat. I will say, however, it does feel extra bad when you're doing a boxes per hour strat. You're kind of running on really low margins, and if you're not dropping an apothecary card, you can quickly find yourself losing money if you're unlucky. So really the primary use case for this is people that want to run 8 mod maps with Delirium on the map device and enraged boxes, and they're just churning through boxes per hour, and they get a little bit of a boost from having the Delirium on here. They don't give a fuck about the splinters, they don't give a fuck about the orbs, they're just there to try and boost their card rates a little bit. One last thing I want to mention here that is also important to this keystone is map layouts. One of the more popular card farming maps was obviously Defiled Cathedral, and if you look at the map layout, it is literally just a giant square. Not super conducive to Delirium, which is kind of favoring linear long layouts. It's super hard to get pure coverage on this Delirium map, especially if it's a mirror, and having the fog never dissipate will make maps like Defiled Cathedral or other similarly difficult layouts much more enticing to run with those aforementioned 8 mod low investment boxes per hour strategies. So I do think you'll be seeing this keystone a lot for those apothecary farmers that are running. I do think it'll be a super viable strategy for that boxes per hour playstyle. Yeah, I just kind of want to give some context on this node and kind of its general use case, because I did see a lot of people super confused and questioning who would even use this. Yeah, next up will be Speaker of the Dead. I don't want to talk about it in this particular video, I just want to keep it to the Delirium keystone, but I do have a lot to say about this particular keystone and why I think it'll be changing the magic finding meta a lot and our current plans for farming it as well. I also do have a POE 2/POE 1 video coming out soon, so look out for that as well. Anyways, I'm Snap, and thanks for watching.